All right. Great afternoon. Great afternoon, everyone. My name is Joan T. Randall. And if you are just joining us for the very first time, welcome to Books, Business, and Brunch. Today, we have a very exciting topic that we're going to be talking about. It's the difference between self-publishing versus traditional and indie publishing. I have with me my co-host Leslie Cottrell. I will send it over to her to give her an opportunity to share a little bit about herself. But I am the founder of Victorious You Press. I'm a publisher, I'm an author, and I'm a coach. And at Victorious You Press, we help career professionals, we help entrepreneurs, and we help destiny helpers to write and publish their best-selling books so that they can monetize their impact and create multiple streams of income and build their legacy. That's what we do. We're known as the author's midwife, and we are excited to be here with you another afternoon. So without further ado, I'm turning it over to my co-host, Leslie.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Leslie Cottrell. I am Joan's sidekick of the COO at Victorious You Press and an author coach. So I love working with both new or newer authors and more experienced authors to help get focused on how to establish a firm foundation to get your book writing started, and then give you great tools to see you through to the end of your writing project. And the secret sauce of Victorious You Press that I think is so wonderful, as Joan was saying, is we take your book, those authors that are interested in going further. We don't stop at the publishing of a book. We help you understand how you can take that book and create multiple streams of income, how you can change the lives of others through a business that was birthed through the writing of your book.
I love that. You said it so eloquently, Leslie. Thank you. Thank you. So we want to get into this topic today of self-publishing versus traditional versus indie publishing. And so without further ado, we're going to go to our slides. We have a little slide for you. So we want to share our slide with you. All right. So there we are. The goal is to self-publish or not to self-publish, right? That's the question of the day, right? A lot of people right now are leaning towards the self-publishing way. And why is that? Because they feel like they have more control of their book, their content. There's a lot of people that's afraid that people will steal whatever it is that they're writing, right? And is that a possibility? Absolutely. There's always people out there that are looking for good content that will take yours. But for the most part, people can always write books, right? And there is nothing under the sun that is new except your own experience, right? And even your own experience, trust me when I tell you, somebody else has been through it, right? Yours may be unique to you and the scenarios may look a little different, But trust me when I tell you, most of the things that we all go through, there is somebody out there that has been through it before. So never be afraid of writing your book for the fear that somebody will steal your content, right? Your goal is to write it so that you can impact a life, so that somebody's breakthrough will happen as a result of you writing your book, right? So let's get into the tea of these three different categories, or four or five or six. There's so many categories now in terms of the publishing realm, but I want to stick to three. I want to stick to the self-publishing versus the traditional publishing and the independent slash hybrid publishing model. All right, so let's get to it. So what is traditional publishing? And this may look a little bit small on your screen, but just hear us out. So in traditional publishing, you complete your manuscript and you write a proposal. Like, that's the thing with traditional publishing. You can't just say, hello, I want to publish with you, but I haven't written my manuscript yet. Oh no, you got to come back when your manuscript is done. Why? Because in traditional publishing, you have to submit a proposal. And you have to submit the proposal with a few chapters of your book that is already written, right? And then it usually goes through an agent. The agent submits it on your behalf. And then once they submit it, then it's up to the publishing house or houses to determine if they want your book, right? And that's really a lengthy process, right? It's a lengthy process. But anyway, you also, the timeline is long, as I have here on the screen. It's anywhere from 18 to 24 months. Sometimes it even takes longer. One of my very good friends, Lisa, did a 3-book publishing deal with a major publisher, one of the big 5. And I think her first book took 2 years and her second book was like 3 years before her second book was published. So the time period is long. Now, it's always a sweet deal if they decide that, yes, you're going to publish your book, but it comes with some things, right? The difference between the indie and the traditional publishing is that the time frame is shorter for independent publisher. And most often with an traditional publishing, you usually have to sign a contract to do more than one book. Traditional publishers don't like a 1-book deal. Most often, the least amount of book you can write for them is 2 or 3, right? A traditional publishing contract means that the author is selling their work to the publishing company, right? So the author will receive royalties anywhere between 6 to 12% of the work as payment. So bear in mind, the traditional publisher is saying, I am going to pay you upfront for your book, right? I'm going to pay you what I think your book is worth. But then I'm going to write it. We're going to publish it. And we're going to keep 85% of the royalty because we're doing all the work, right? We have done all the work. We have done the editing. We have done the cover design. We have done some of the marketing. We've set up all these deals. And, all you have to do is bring your team, bring your followers to the marketplace so that they can help make sure your book is a success. All right. So you can't go to a traditional publisher with 1,000 people on your list, like your followers. No. You have to have a large email list and you have to have thousands of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers before a traditional publishing company will say yes to you. And whatever content is that you're writing, it has to be good and it has to be able to translate into book 2 or book 3. And then here are the big 5, right? When you hear them say the big 5, there's a ton of publishing companies out there, but there's 5 big ones. Penguin Random House, Hachette Livre, HarperCollins, Macmillan Publishers, and Simon & Schuster. They are the big 5. They are the dominant, big, huge traditional publishing company. Anything you want to say about the slide, Les, before we move forward?
you've covered it really well. But one of the important things to remember in traditional publishing is that that landscape has definitely changed. And no one in traditional publishing does all the marketing anymore. They are still expecting the author to do a great deal of hustle. So that used to be so attractive to any author. Oh my gosh, if I can land a deal with the big five, now I'm all set. I can start writing my next book. That is totally not the case anymore. They are still expecting authors to do a big, long hustle. Just like they're doing some of the marketing, they expect you to pull a great deal of that load yourself. And you have to be prepared for that, because marketing's the area that nobody really wants to do.
Right, right. Thank you for that, Leslie. So what is independent publishing? Well, independent publishing is a publishing company publishes the works of other authors, right? And soon we're going to talk about the hybrid publishing, because there's a lot of similarities with independent publishing and hybrid publishing. So in the independent publishing, or the independent publisher, they are publishing the book for the author, right? And so they're doing all of the work that it takes to take the book from manuscript all the way until your book is available in bookstores and on Amazon. They're doing all of the work for you. A good independent publisher should help guide authors through the entire process of publishing. So it's almost like you're getting a mini training course, right? Especially if your indie publisher is very hands-on. They're usually walking you through the process. They're doing calls with you. They're helping you with strategies for marketing. They're helping you with strategies for best selling, right? So that's what they do. A lot of support to the author. And they will take it, as I said before, from manuscript and proofreading to production, sales, and marketing. And they should be there to help you through the entire process. And the great thing about the indie publisher is the author maintains the rights and the royalties, right? Now, in this whole publishing landscape, right, there are a bunch of different things that the Independent Book Publishers Association of the United States is trying to identify and to put in categories, and that is publishing. So outside of the traditional publishing, right, the IBPA's focus is to understand all the different levels of publishing that is out there. We're just going to talk about two today, which is indie and the hybrid, right? Those are the two we're talking about. But I want you to know there are other publishing out there, like publishing services. There is like schools, publishing schools and universities, and a few others, right? But it all rolls up under publishing outside of traditional. So the traditional stands on its own, but then there's all these levels of other publishers, right? But the bigger two after traditional is actually indie publishing and hybrid. So again, the indie publisher, they publish the book for the author. Author maintains 100% of rights and royalty. Most often, the independent publisher is paid upfront, but there's some level of help on the back end with distribution, right? Helping the authors get into bookstore and helping them get their books distributed to the marketplace, right? So that's one of the things that the independent publisher does. Now, what is hybrid publishing? So hybrid publishing is completely in the middle of traditional and indie. Why? Because hybrid publishers front some of the upfront costs. What does that mean? It means they put some of the money upfront for publishing. So let's read what it has here. They have a clear vetting process for acquiring titles, and they're selective because they want to make sure that the book wins. Why? Because hybrid publishers get a percentage of the royalties. And so they're not going to publish a book that is not going to do well, because that is going to affect their bottom line. That is going to affect their money coming in. That is going to affect their royalties, right? So they have a vetting process to make sure they select the right titles. They accept unsolicited and unagented book proposals. So the average person who wants to be published by a hybrid publisher does not have to go through an agent. Authors pay all or some of the upfront cost, right? So that particular person that is doing hybrid publishing, if they're not paying anything upfront, then the expectation is that they're not getting any royalty. But if they're paying upfront, they're going to expect anywhere from 25 to 30% royalties, right? And the author maintains the other 75 or 70%. Hybrid publishing, they have a traditional distribution through a third-party distributor, such as Publishers Group West, Simon & Schuster, Ingram Publisher, Ingram Spark, or the Independent Publishers Group. So again, hybrid publisher, what makes them different is that there is a level of distribution that they connect the authors to so that the author's book gets out into the public. And that's one of the role that they play. Authors typically have more creative control over their book cover, their packaging. They hybrid publisher, they manage inventory, they manage sales and returns, but may share some of the financial risk with author. What does that mean? So if a hybrid author gets your book in Barnes and Noble, that's great, right? If your book is selling well, all is cool. But if your book is not, right, Barnes and Noble may say, I'm returning these books. When they return those books, the risk of the return is now owned by the hybrid publisher, and they would share that risk with the author as well. So if 10 books gets returned at $20 a pop, that is $200, right? The hybrid publisher is going to take on some of that risk of cost, but maybe 50% they take, 70% for the author. So again, there is that financial risk factor with any returns from a bookstore. Publisher controls the copyright and own the ISBN. So again, with the hybrid publishing, the author doesn't own the ISBN, right? And the author only partially owns the copyright, but the publisher does. And then the publisher pays a higher than industry royalty. So there's a lot of stuff where the hybrid publishing is concerned. Anything you want to add to this, Leslie?
I think you covered that really well. And it's great to see how this all breaks down as someone who is new to the publishing field is trying to navigate how it is going to be best for them to publish their book. There are things that may be attractive on each one of these fronts, but the bottom line is it depends on how important it is to you to maintain that control of your book, of your intellectual rights, of your copyright, of your own ISBN, of your own royalties. Those are decisions only the author can make.
Absolutely. That is so true. All right, the next slide. What is self-publishing? So finally, we got to the part that we want to talk about. So what is self-publishing? Self-publishing is the process of undertaking all responsibilities related to publishing a book. So if you decide to self-publish, you will be in charge of everything: edits, cover design, formatting, and release and marketing of your book, getting your book on the bestsellers list, getting your book out into the market. All of that you own, right? Being in charge doesn't always mean you have to do everything yourself, right? And what does that mean is that sometimes you can hire someone with the expertise along the way. For example, if you write the book, you should not edit the book. So you're going to have to get an editor, and you have to understand the type of editor that you need. Is it a developmental editor? Is it a copy editor? Is it a line editor, or it's just a proofreader? You have to be able to identify the type of editor you need for the book that you're publishing, right? You may have to get a cover designer, although Amazon and Ingram Spark and Lulu and BookBaby all give you templates in which you can design your own cover, right? They have a library of templates. You choose the template, you choose the scene that you want on your book cover. You add the title and you add the subtitle and you add your name, and voila, right? A book cover appears. So you can do that. Or you can get a graphic designer to create a book cover for you. But all of that is going to be coming out of your own pocket, right? But this allows you to maintain 100% ownership of everything, right? However, you may not know all the things. You may not know all the things about self publishing. So that is the downside to self publishing, especially if you're doing it for the first time. I like to say to people who want to self publish, let your first book be published by an expert, right? Whether it's the indie publisher or the hybrid publisher. And so learn along the way what is needed for you to self-publish. And then your next book, you do it yourself, right? But get the understanding, get the wisdom. Don't just go out there and try to self-publish because you want to save money. It may end up costing you more in the long run. Do you agree with that, Leslie?
I absolutely do. With everything that you said. And, if you're interested in being published multiple times, and I hope everybody is, just that first time, allow yourself the opportunity to learn from the experts. And then if self-publishing is something that interests you, by all means, take the reins after you let someone help you go through the process the first time.
Absolutely. And so we're going to our next slide, right? And this is where it says to self-publish or not. That is the question. And so let's just break this down, right? The pros of self-publishing is that the author owns all rights and receives all the royalty payments, right? So again, if you're publishing on Amazon or on Lulu or on Ingram Spark or whatever book publishing service you use to publish your book to get it out to the audience, the open, you're only going to receive a portion of that in royalties, right? You won't get all of it. You're only going to receive a portion of that. A self-published author is on the same platform as a traditionally published author, and that's what makes it so interesting. So you never have to worry that a book that's being published by Simon and Schuster is in a different place, and my book that I'm self-publishing is in a different place. At some point, they're all landing on Amazon. So you can be right next to a traditionally published book, right? And they're number one, and you could be right next to them as number two when you launch your best-selling book, right? So those are the pros. Author controls all of the content, the cover, the interior design, the marketing of the book. The author controls all of that. You never have to worry about my book content being in the hands of somebody else, being in the hands of a publisher. And remember at the start, one of the things we talked about is that people are sometimes afraid of their content getting into hands of other people. Print on demand makes a forever shelf life. What does that mean? That you don't have to ever worry about buying 1,000 books and keeping them in your garage in the hope that somebody is going to order your books from your website. Print on demand allows you to just order the number of books that you need at any given time. And I love that, right? So if 50 people order for pre-order, then order 60 or 70 books, right? And the most you might need to keep on hand is 50, just in case you have to go to church and you can sell those books, or you're keeping them in the trunk of your car. You go to an event, you're bringing your books. Either you're giving it away so people know that you're an author and can follow you and can do business with you in the future, or you're selling it because somebody has an interest in what you have to say. And then understand that this whole self-publishing thing, it is not a sprint. It's the long term of publishing, right? It's the long-term effect. And here at Victorious You Press, we believe that a book is a business, right? And if you're looking at it that way, you know that the book is the first rung of the ladder for you building a business, right? And then you never have to worry about storing the book anywhere. And then the author controls the cost. So what you pay to edit, to do the cover design, or to get your book formatted, as you start to sell the book, you're going to be able to control the cost. You know what it costs you to put it out, and you know how many books you need to sell to recoup that cost, right? That's the return on your investment. So you control all of the costs. And then to self-publish or not, here are the cons. So here are the things that are not so good about self-publishing. Working with online self-publishing platforms, especially for a new author, the lack of support and the lack of expertise of what you do not know is hard. A lot of mistakes, a lot of uncertainty, right? You might spend hours trying to go through Amazon or KDP to understand, how do I do this, or Ingram Spark or Lulu, right? That's a con. Some won't know the difference between developmental editing versus copy editing and proofreading, right? So sometimes you're writing for the first time, you're like, oh my God, where do I fall? Which one of these editing services do I need, right? And they're all very important, very distinctive, and they're essential to making sure that your book looks good. The risk of a low quality product. That means that your formatting might not look good, and it may not be to publishing standards, the national publishing standards, because there is a standard to the interior design of your book being to standard, right? And one of those things are, do you know that most new chapters starts on the right side of the book, which is the odd number page? Things like that, right? You may not know that, right? And so that's a con. And then lack of marketing strategy. A lot of people who self-publish don't understand the marketing piece and don't realize that marketing starts before the book is even finished writing, right? You want to build momentum. So when you are trying to self-publish, you're so focused on getting everything right about the book that you forget to market the book. And then the book is published and you're trying to tell people, and then you're too late. The horse has already gone through the gate. You missed the opportunity, right? And then lack of sales. There is this saying in the publishing world that the average author only sells 250 books. And that is not enough. So how do you get out of the gate selling 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 books, right? So not using a professional, you may miss the opportunity of getting these right. Anything you want to add to this, Leslie? Ooh, I think you're on mute. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. It's so easy to be overwhelmed, and you are going to be focusing on the nuts and the bolts of getting that book finished, uploaded, released. That it's going to be very difficult your first time out to also do that marketing, getting that in place before the book is published. So I just think it's too much to ask of someone the first time they publish to have to think of all these things, get all these trainings from this spot and that spot to try and pull it all together to have a successful launch on your first book out.
I totally agree. Completely agree. All right. So here are some self-publishing platforms, right? So the top ones are ebooks. The bottom ones are your paperbacks. So your ebooks can be published on KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing. It is the publishing arm of Amazon, as you know. Barnes and Noble Press is where you can publish your ebooks. Apple Books is where you can publish your ebooks. And Kobo is another platform for digital ebooks. Now, here's the thing. If you publish with KDP, you will not get your book on Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, or Kobo. But if you publish your ebook on Ingram Spark, you will get all of these platforms. Your book will show up on all of these platforms. So if you publish your ebook on Ingram Spark, it will show up on KDP, it will show up on Barnes and Noble, it will show up on Apple Books, and it will show up on Kobo. All right. On the bottom, paperback publishing platforms, Ingram Spark, Lulu, Readsy, or Self-Publishing School. But there's so many other places that you can get your books published, right? So these are just some of the places we wanted to highlight and point out to you. Now, here's the thing about self-publishing versus traditional and indie. It's whatever is right for you, right? So it is your choice about what you choose to be the right thing for you to do in terms of publishing. Oh, my screen just went dark. So that's it. That's all we have for you today. Leslie, do you want to wrap this up with anything?
The last thing I want to touch on, which Joan already did, but I know that this can be a real speed bump for especially first-time authors. You absolutely have to have an editor. There's no way around it. Someone has to put their eyes on your book besides you, and I don't mean your sister.
Yeah.
You have to have an editor go over your book. And if you are convicted that you can do this yourself, spend some time getting educated on those different levels of editing that we were speaking of, because there's a huge difference between the developmental all the way down to the proofreading. So know that a large portion of your budget, if you're self-publishing, is going to be your editing, but it's a non-negotiable. You have to have your book professionally edited.
Absolutely. And so that's it for us today. Thank you so much for all those of you that joined the broadcast. We appreciate you hanging out with us for this 30 minutes. And for those who are watching the replay, thank you for watching with us. You can find us on YouTube and in our Books to Business and Beyond Facebook group. We're coming live to you every Monday at 12:30 p.m. And remember, the pen creates an indelible moment in time that can never be erased. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Blessings. Bye, guys.